So this is Local Foods College. As I said earlier, this is sort of an emergency session that we wanted to provide people with information in response to the COVID-19 outbreak and help people kind of figure out some things that we might be able to do to respond to that situation we're in right now. All right. A little bit about Local Food College. So we are the Regional Sustainable Development Partnerships. We're a program in the University of Minnesota Extension. We've been doing Local Food College for about 6 years now. And so this is usually an annual series we have where we bring together people from the University of Minnesota, from Extension experts and farm experts, community experts to talk about specific topics. And then it's sort of emerged into this webinar series where people from all over Minnesota, the upper Midwest and beyond can join us. And it's been going pretty well. It evolves. It used to be just a little exercise where we'd have a few people in a room come together in a room and watch it on TV. So we've come a long way, and it seems to be a very useful way to convey information to a lot of people who are scattered around the state and beyond. So the basics, I'm sorry, I don't have a great overview of Katie and Hannah here today. They'll go over who they are in a lot more detail here, but we have Katie Myhre of Red Market and Hannah Bernhardt of Medicine Creek Farm. Sorry, that got cut off. And we'll be talking about the basics of online ordering systems for local foods.
Okay. Well, hi everyone. It's like Greg said, it's a bit of an emergency time, but at the same time, I think this is a really unique opportunity for all of us to kind of look inward to our communities and start looking to our neighbors who have been producing food all along to start feeding each other. So I think what has grounded me in this conversation is not necessarily doing anything out of emergency or changing circumstances, but just continuing the strategies that we've been working on all along in the local food scene and thinking about an online presence from the perspective of things that will add to our existing businesses and won't change fundamentally what we're doing, just hopefully add more customers. So I'm really excited to be talking to you all with Hannah. Hannah, I met online, so that's cool. She was one of the first farmers I ever purchased from. Her farm name was Belly Rub Bacon at the time, which obviously sucked me in right away. She will tell you a little bit more about herself, but she's done a really amazing job carving out an online farm business. So I thought she would be a great, local example and expert in this category. So Hannah, do you want to share a little bit about your farm?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Hannah Bernhardt. I run Medicine Creek Farm. We are outside of Finlayson, Minnesota, which is about an hour south of Duluth and an hour and a half north of Minneapolis in northeastern Minnesota. We raise grass-fed beef and lamb and pastured pork. And I did start out on rented land just doing pork, which was when I was Belly Rub Bacon. But when we bought our farm up here and were able to expand to the grass-fed beef and lamb, we needed to change our name. And so we've been here about 4 years now. And, we started with 10 pigs, and at this point we're typically doing 20 pigs a year. And we have a flock of about 50 sheep. We're about to have almost 100 in May when we lamb. And we currently now, we did 2 cows, I think, our first season, and we now have about 35, and we're going to calve at least 10 this year. So our sales have expanded, our customer base has expanded, and we've just continued growing. And it's been going well for us so far.
And did you mention which markets you're selling to, like which regions?
No. So yeah, we're right in between Duluth and the Twin Cities, which is convenient. So we do sell to both urban areas. We have some local customers, but primarily we deliver to both Duluth and the Twin Cities.
And how did you market yourself in that area? A little question pops up here.
We'll probably get into that a little bit more, unless Hannah, you want to.
I'm a little worried that if a lot of questions start popping up, I'm not going to be able to keep track of them. So right now I will let you take that later or not, but I might be jumping in with questions because there's a lot of stuff going on in the chat right now. Otherwise we'll start losing them, but I'll try my best to keep them all.
I guess I'll just say real quick that I have always had an online presence. That was the only way I marketed. I've never done a farmer's market. And so from the very start with my farm, I based it off of website and social media.
Okay, so I guess I can just get started here. I know that there's 50 people on this call that might have a huge range of experience with having their own website, trying out online marketplaces, maybe just selling at the farmer's market and never having a website. So we're going to kind of try to keep it broad, but I think Greg would be a great source or a great place to direct your questions, and hopefully we can accommodate this content to what you need, because this is all about the people on the call and how we can help you during this time. But I added this slide because I think it really helps capture what we want to talk about, and kind of this enigma of online sales for a lot of folks. Online sales aren't really a marketing strategy in itself. So a lot of people think starting an online sales platform is a whole campaign to get customers. It's actually more of a sales channel, and you still have to abide by a lot of traditional marketing tactics, which Hannah's going to get into some of the nuts and bolts of what she's done
Right,
as well.
Sorry to interrupt, Katie. Are you sharing your screen right now?
Yeah.
I don't think we see your slides.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thanks, Greg.
Yep. And that looks like that's going to work.
All right. Okay, great. Now I can see people. That makes more sense. Okay.
Yeah.
So thinking about your online presence as a sales channel, and complementing that with the ways that you brand your product, how you're talking about the reasons people would buy from you, thinking about how pricing matches with your customer base, knowing more about your demographics that you're chasing, and figuring out how they're going to find out about you. We're going to talk about all of those little pieces as part of this strategy that pairs with the online sales channel. So I broke it down into 5 steps the best I could. The first one, we're going to talk about just very entry level, why even start selling online, things to consider as you're venturing into your online platform and making sure that you know what you want to get out of it and you're defining what you're really good at. The second step is looking at what you already have online. Most farms have at least something online about their farm, even if they didn't post it themselves. So learning about what's already out there and how you can improve upon it. The third part is picking your system. So I think a lot of people on this call are probably very curious about our recommendations for platforms. So we'll talk both about on-farm solutions to maybe building up a delivery network and what you need to think about in decision-making on your farm, and then online platforms to complement it. Step 4 is communication channels, how you're going to talk to folks, how they're going to find you, things, again, to complement your day-to-day, not to change all of your operations. Step 5 is marketing, everybody's favorite, right? Okay. So we'll start with setting goals. Hannah, you mentioned earlier that you, from the beginning, said you wanted to sell online exclusively. Could you talk a little bit about thinking through the goals that you set right away and how you thought about the online platform?
Yeah, so we did the Land Stewardship Project's Farm Beginnings course, and as part of that, we worked on developing a holistic goal. We didn't do the whole holistic management course, but we just sort of looked at that piece. And part of that process is talking about your quality of life goals. And so right away, we knew that we didn't want a lifestyle where we had to be at a farmer's market every Saturday. And so that is kind of how we decided on primarily selling online, and really making our focus be having a robust website, and making all of the sales channels easy for customers to kind of funnel through.
And did you get specific about numbers, or were you just kind of in an exploratory phase when you started?
Well, we set some goals. Obviously, goals are always changing, and as you get going, they shift. It really did help to have an idea of where we thought we wanted to be. Again, you reassess yearly, and so things did shift some, but we knew we wanted to have a large land base. You know, at the time we were just renting a few acres, and we knew that if we really wanted to do rotational grazing and do regenerative agriculture, that we were going to need more than just a homestead with a few acres in order to graze cattle and sheep. And so that's kind of what, I mean, that actually did set us on the path to like looking for a large land base, which sent us to looking in this area of Minnesota because the land was more affordable. And then from there, it's kind of like whatever the carrying capacity of your land is, we know that that is our, you know, that's the max we're going to be able to make each year, is whatever the carrying capacity of our land is.
And so a lot of folks on this call might be joining in a very different scenario where you're thinking about, oh man, am I going to have a farmer's market in business this summer? So you might be entering where you know what your weekly sales needs are. I would really encourage you, as you're thinking about an online platform, to talk directly to some of your customers about it. What is this online channel going to add or fill in this time of uncertainty? And do any of those customers that you're used to seeing at the farmer's market, do they have feedback on thinking about which online platform you're going to use? Do they want to buy online? Do they want to be able to call you and place their order that way? I think customer input at this stage is also really important when you're thinking about how this platform aligns with the goals that you're setting. And I use the example of I need to sell $1,000 of vegetables per week, and I think working backwards is a really good strategy. So a lot of you might already have existing farm businesses where, again, you know what you need to sell each week. Think about the customer base that you've already built. Hannah's talking about a scenario where she kind of she used the online system to start from zero and to build her customer base. But just a reminder, a lot of you are not there. You already have a customer base. So think about how you can reverse that process and work backwards in order to keep that door to customers open. I also think about, in line with Hannah's comment about holistic quality of life, is what is your on-farm capacity and how much time do you have to dedicate to this per week? Can you give us a sense, Hannah, of how much time you dedicate to your online business per week?
You know, so much of my work is just like completely integrated into my life. It's not like they're separate. I don't, you know, go to work and come home at a certain time. So it's really hard to kind of judge. But I would say I'm doing social media every day. You know, every day that I do chores, whenever I go out and I'm moving the animals or feeding animals, I'm posting to social media. So in that regard, I'm doing a little bit of marketing every day. But in terms of like website upkeep, I don't have to really do many changes. You know, I spent probably a day or two when I was first building it to get it just how I wanted it to be. But, you know, then it's kind of self-sustaining, and I just make updates and changes here and there throughout the year. In terms of email marketing that I do, you know, some people will say that you should be sending regular newsletters, and that's maybe true, but I also do all of the actual farm production as well. And so I know that's not really realistic, especially in the growing season. And so, I haven't had any problems with just sending newsletters when I need to either share a piece of information like an event that we're having, or when I have something for sale that I'm actually trying to, that, I need people to buy now. And so that's really, a half a day of my time, maybe 4 or 5 times a year. And then, in terms of taking in orders and doing that kind of administrative work, that's also for me spread out throughout the year, because I'm doing meat sales. And we sell halves and wholes and quarters, but we also sell beef boxes, and in the future we're going to be offering more boxes. And so those are smaller portions that will fit in people's regular refrigerator size freezers. And that increases my workload some, but it also moves more product because more people are able to buy in those quantities. So it depends on the time of year. But, I guess it's at least an hour every week that I'm doing something related to selling and an online platform, and then a little bit of social media every day.
Awesome. Does anyone have any questions about this stage? I think we'll get a little bit more into the meat on the next step. Oh, and I think you already brought this up. I just added this quote from you, Hannah, about, again, the quality of life goal, I think, is a very important thing to remember in this. So people are not thinking that your marketing is a whole separate act that you're going to, sit down and do once per week. Like you said, Hannah, it integrates into your life, and thinking about the quality of life goal is super important to think about all of these considerations. I also wanted to bring up how, when you started your platform, you thought of yourself as the user. And I think this is a really important consideration to make when people are sitting down and thinking about their website. So can you just say maybe a couple words about how you prioritize certain decisions when you were building your website that helped connect you with your customer base?
Yeah, so I had participated in CSAs before and bought food from other farmers online before, and I'd also I would say I'd stalked a lot of websites of farmers that I admired, and so that's kind of like a research part that I just did out of curiosity mostly, but it really ended up helping me a lot, is because I saw how a lot of different people were doing it. And so then when I was building my own, I could kind of see, well, I liked that information that they shared, that made sense to me, and was really helpful. And especially in when you're ordering custom processed meat, it's a process that a lot of customers haven't done before. And, even I hadn't done at some point. And so I had a lot of questions, and felt very tentative about it because I didn't know the process. It made me probably less likely to buy that way. And so I knew if I was going to try to sell that way, I wanted it to be super clear, like all of the answers to my questions laid out automatically. And I didn't want to have to search for that information, and I didn't want to have to email the farmer and bother them. I didn't want to have to call anyone. I kind of just wanted it to all be on the website. So I feel like my website is so full of information, and a lot of people would think you want it short and succinct. And I think that's true to a point, but also having it all there means that you can find it or you can skip it if you don't want it. So at least it's there. But if it's too much information, you can just scroll on by to what you do need. And I do think that has saved me time from answering a lot of questions, and also just made it easier for people to go through the process. And of course, people still have questions and people still email me, and that's fine too. But I can also point people to certain parts of the website to say, all that information is there. There's pictures there, check that out. And that helps, and it gives people a reassurance of what the process they're going through.
Awesome. And we're gonna show that example from your website too, but you bring up the next kind of big point is thinking about comparing your farm to other farms, and I think even other successful websites that you like visiting. Maybe you don't want to become the next Amazon, which we all understand, but what works about Amazon? Why do customers like it, and how can you employ some of those strategies? So I'm really glad you brought that up, Hannah, and I think it's a really great place for everyone who's, even if you've been on the website that you've got for many years and you feel very confident in it, there's always ways you can improve. So that's the key for the second step, is don't start from scratch. Just think about ways that you can improve your existing website. One of those ways, just to do a quick check on yourself, is to Google yourself. So I Googled Medicine Creek Farm, and you get a lot of information right away. And this isn't on accident. This is Hannah putting out a lot of information in a lot of places, but it's very clear, very succinct. She's got products here, contact information right there, photos. You got some competition on your YouTube videos, I guess. So maybe you got to throw some sheep on there, but
I think I'm going to have to.
Yeah. I think this is a good check for everybody to do really quickly, and just get a sense of if somebody sees you, meets you out in the community or at the farmer's market, how are they going to remember your name and find you? So that's one easy thing to do. The other thing is to question whether or not the website that you have is really easy for you to use and make changes to. I think some people get into a situation where they have a website that they don't know how to make changes on the fly to, and today in 2020, there's so many great resources out there to do really simple, really clean websites that they basically design for you. You just have to add content. And Hannah, you're using Squarespace, right?
Yep.
Squarespace is a great one. Wix. What else am I missing? There's a lot of examples of just template-based websites that can get you going pretty fast. So think about, question that. I would say the only time you shouldn't start from scratch is if you have a website that you don't feel comfortable with using. The next step is to diversify what's out there. So how are people already discovering your farm? I think when we got to Googling Hannah, there's a lot of information out there in a lot of different places. And again, she probably, well, Hannah, maybe you should just talk about, how did you think about putting your information out there in a way that you knew you were going to have people funnel back to your website?
Well, so I have done some marketing work for other companies in the past. And so some of, what I knew starting my business was from already having marketing experience. And so I knew that getting on Google Maps was incredibly important. It's really easy to do, but a lot of people overlook doing it. But, when people are searching on Google Maps and will type in farm, you want your farm to show up on Google Maps. I know some people are a little bit uncomfortable, having their home also be public. But for me, I just made the decision that it kind of had to be out there. And, most businesses have a public location. So it's just part of doing business, I feel. And then you can also do a free Google My Business account, and that's where it allows you to add those other things. So you can add in your products right there and link back to your website. You can also just put events, or there's an ability to post, which is kind of like, excuse me, like a social media post. You can kind of post whatever you want. And then in addition to that, getting on as many free directories as I could was possible. A lot of those directories have more advanced SEO than what I will have, or it takes time to build search engine optimization. And so if you get yourself on directories, when people search, like Minnesota farm, it's going to pull up a directory perhaps before it pulls up your direct farm website. So you just want to make sure you're on that directory and using their SEO to bring your website up. And so, I am a Minnesota Grown member. and I'm on like Local Harvest, and I can't even keep track of all of the free directories I'm on. Eat Wild is one that has a small charge that has really great SEO. And so I do think that's important, and a lot of them are free. So there's no reason not to just sign up and put yourself on. Again,
oh, sorry.
I was just going to say, as many other websites that are linking back to your website, that helps pull your website up in Google search.
Can you say for just briefly why you want to be on Google Maps? What's the purpose?
Well, I don't know. For my generation, it's like I use Google Maps for everything. So when I'm searching for something, it's the first place I'm looking. You know, I'm not even going to, like on my phone, I'm not going to Google Chrome and typing it in search. I'm going to Google Maps and saying what's around me right now and typing it in there. And so you want your farm to be pulled up on Google Maps because it's the first place people are looking. And it also comes up in regular Google search too. You know, so like this example, we just typed in Medicine Creek Farm and Google Maps comes up there on the right. It's integrated into their system.
And just to note from the chat, people are saying they use GoDaddy along with Square, Squarespace, Wix.com, just a few things. Minnesota Grown, the directory.
Yeah, and Hannah, could you just briefly explain to folks what SEO stands for and why it's important?
Yeah, SEO means search engine optimization. And you can get really technical with it if you want, and you can do a lot of research and kind of go down a rabbit hole. But, you know, the basics are just that you want other websites linking back to yours. And then you want keywords on all of your pages. And so you kind of just, when you're building your website, or if you think your website needs a little bit better search engine optimization, sort of think about what people are going to be Googling. So, you know, I think for me, people are probably saying like grass-fed beef, Minnesota, you know, or where do I buy local meat? And so you want to put grass-fed beef, local meat on your webpage somewhere. A lot of the times that can just be built into the text you're writing. It helps to get those keywords also up in the title of your webpage. So if your webpage titles aren't very clear, you might want to think about packing a few more keywords in there. But so things like Squarespace also, and I believe WordPress, have SEO tools to kind of walk you through that. And, you know, if it's totally new to you, don't worry about it yet. But if you've had a website for a while and you feel like you could be doing better, that's maybe a next step to look into.
Okay, I just want to say one more point for this. In the information that you share about your farm, Hannah, I know you talked about sharing a lot of information that answers questions for folks, but could you talk about how you simplified the information that's out there about your farm, and how you chose what to put out there, and how you kind of funneled people into the ways of contacting you that worked best for you?
Yeah, so I do prefer that, you know, all of, I guess I prefer email to talking on the phone. And so for me, I wanted everything to be as much online as possible. And yeah, that's just a personal preference. You know, I take phone calls and my phone, but if I put all the answers on the website from the start, that means I'm going to get less phone calls. I think, you know, some of the other things, like in looking through a lot of other farms' websites and having a little bit of background in marketing, one thing I noticed is that farmers tend to not want to put their face on their website or very much information about themselves personally. Some people are good and, you know, have a full bio, but a lot of people will just kind of gloss over that or just talk about the farm generically, but not talk about themselves. And I'm also not that comfortable in front of a camera. It's not my favorite place to be. But from the marketing I've done, I knew that it's incredibly important. And just from the farmers that I also, or the farms that I also followed, it was because I was really interested in the people running the farms too. And I think, a lot of times farmers think that it's just the practices we're using that draws people to us. But a lot of the times it's your personal story too, how you got started, what your background was, what you enjoy most about what you're doing. That's what people really want to hear. They want to buy from you and not just from your website. So I do think, I put a lot of stuff about us on my website too, as well as, a whole page dedicated to animals. So you have to do both.
And I pulled up Hannah's page that she's talking about this and talking about the story, and she's got LinkedIn. I saw Melissa on the call, I think. So.
Oh yeah.
There's a
Melissa.
shout out there. Information about the family, and then the newsletter, and then Hannah did mention also the animal page, so I'm just going to pull that up too. And I'd encourage you all to check out her page as an example because it's really great. But we'll go back.
So we've got a question from the audience also.
Okay.
When is it worth paying someone else to do your website? And I think this might be the Melissa to whom you refer, asking, she tried to do a Wix site, just couldn't do it. There were too many different choices, didn't have the bandwidth to figure it all out. So when would you pay someone to do it, and what might options be other than paying someone? Like where do you break that out?
Yeah. So Squarespace costs money. And again, I made that decision because I wanted my website to be, very polished from the beginning. But there are free sites and you can make it really simple. When to hire someone else, like if it's really not your thing, if you're totally lost and you're just wasting time, then maybe you do want to pay someone to do it. There's also, you can also barter with people. A lot of young people have the skills and know how to do it, to do a simple one. We're not talking like building from scratch, but to use a platform like Squarespace where there's already templates, and, ask someone if they will, trade a half hog for a website. Those are good options.
And I would say the trap that I've seen a lot of businesses, and this isn't just farmers, food businesses in general, get into is they outsource their website, and either they pay way too much money for it and it's not that great, or they have this great website but then have no ability to make small changes on the go. And I think when we're talking about running a farm business off of a website, things change all the time. You have different products that you're offering, you have seasonality involved. So I would say learning how to build the website yourself through one of these apps like Wix and Squarespace is maybe a longer term investment where you don't have to rush to put it all together. It's something that you can do a little bit at a time and really take time to get familiar with it. And I think you could, find somebody in your network that feels really comfortable with it, and maybe they'd be willing to come out to the farm and show you a couple of the tricky things and answer some questions. I think that's my preferred route. It saves you money in the long term, and I think it puts you in a better position to have more control over your business. And I know a lot of us are very independent minded, so I want to just highlight that, making sure that you're not putting your web presence into the hands of somebody else.
I'll just add to that. So another thing I really like about Squarespace is that they have an app. So you can't build your whole website from the app on your phone. You have to start with a computer. But in terms of making those little updates, you can do that quickly and easily from the app on my phone. So like last week, I was close to selling out, and I was still getting orders in. And I knew that the moment I got that last order, I needed to immediately go on the website and say, we're sold out now. so that the orders wouldn't keep coming in.
It's probably a good time to talk about systems then, since we're already talking about websites. So it's 3:40 now, so I think we'll spend maybe another 20-25 minutes going through this, and we'll really open it up to questions. Deciding on Squarespace, you've talked a little bit about it, Hannah, but I think the point that I really want to make hit home here is that there isn't really a perfect platform out there. Every farm business is super unique, and they each have strengths and weaknesses. So I think part of this process, there's so many resources out there, and we have some on this at the end of this presentation that has comparison between platforms. You need to think about what works for your skill set and your needs, and what you can reasonably modify on the go on a regular basis. And your marketing is the most important part of this, not the actual platform. The platform isn't going to solve your needs. It's the ways that you use the platform as a tool. So I think that's a really important distinction. And Hannah's compared a lot of different platforms, and I think she's willing to answer some questions about things like Graze Cart, Barn to Door, and Square. So we'll open that up in a few minutes. But I think thinking about like the nuts and bolts of sales and how that matches your platform, thinking about, what considerations you need to make on the farm if you're going to have folks coming out to your farm to pick up product. I know I've had times where I've purchased from a farm and I didn't know when I was able to go out to the farm. I spent 6 emails going back and forth with the farmer trying to figure out when worked for them to come out to the farm. Didn't have the address right, or I didn't have the address right because I wasn't really sure, to your point about Google Maps, where exactly the farm was. So I think thinking about some of the operational things will help inform your decision about the platform. So it's sometimes a good way to start there. We're thinking about how do I want this experience to work, and then choosing the platform that works for those steps. So Hannah, do you want to talk a little bit about how your kind of sales system works with your maybe your beef boxes would be a good example of this, and how you use an online tool to get those sold and communicate with your customers?
Yeah. So to just talk about the nuts and bolts of my website and the order page. So I just have one page. It's just called Order, and it has all of my ordering information on it. So it has all of the kinds of products I have available. It has a description of, so there's a short blurb with the price and about how much it will cost once you've paid for the processing. This is for the custom products. But then I also have the beef boxes on there. And then as you scroll down the page, then it goes in depth on each of those options. So what do you get with a half hog? What does that look like? Because that was a common question I was getting. So, I have a picture of what a half hog is, and I have a written description of about how many pounds you will get of these cuts of meat. And I go through that for, every product. So for the beef and the lamb. And then below all of that, I have my order form. And on the order form, I have all of the options. So you can just check the box for what you want. And that includes, what's the product you're ordering? How do you want to pay? And do you want delivery or pickup, and delivery to where? And then a comments box if there's anything else. I think that's everything.
Yeah, and I think what I really liked about yours too, Hannah, is at the top of your page, sorry if I'm giving anyone a headache scrolling, but you also have all this additional information, but then you point out to customers, hey, if you already know what you want, scroll to the bottom. So
Right.
just little ways that you're kind of simplifying it for customers. They can kind of dial into the additional information. So what do you, sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say one other thing is I'm trying to be clear about when products are available too. So because a lot of people are ordering, a half hog, it's not going to be delivered until December. I try to make that very clear. And then we do these beef boxes more frequently throughout the year. And so, sometimes it will say, okay, like beef boxes coming up. And then we don't necessarily take deposits.
Do you like this system? What do you like about it? What do you feel kind of limited by?
So I like it because it's free and pretty simple, and I think it's clear and easy for customers to fill out. And when people ask like, how do I order, I just say go to the website, there's a form. But if we're talking about people who are considering like Gray's Cart or Barn to Door, I would say those give you a lot of enhanced capabilities. But if you're just starting from the beginning, this is a good free option if you don't have the money to invest in a really robust platform. So this, when people fill this out, I just get an email with all of their information on the form. And then I respond to the email and send them a link to make the deposit payment. And I use QuickBooks because I'm already using QuickBooks Online for my accounting software. And so I can create an invoice on QuickBooks and I can just send them a link. And that's how they pay their deposit. Now, QuickBooks will let you do a bank transfer for free. And so that is the sort of method that I try to encourage most customers to use because there's no processing fee. And then also because it automatically links to my QuickBooks, it makes my accounting a lot easier because it kind of just automatically records and updates. If people really need to use a credit card, which I understand, then I will create an invoice in PayPal and I'll send them a link to the PayPal invoice. And then I do also take cash and check, although obviously now I've been also discouraging that. A few people still, just for whatever reason, that's what they're comfortable with. Some people don't like to put banking information online. So people will mail checks too, and that's totally fine. So that process, when I'm handling orders, that can be like an all day thing for me. If I'm getting a lot in, if I've just sent a marketing email and I'm getting all my orders at once, it is a little bit cumbersome, but it depends on what you're selling. If you're just selling quarters of beef, it's only 4 customers, it's only 4 emails and 4 invoices. So that's totally doable. When it gets to be these beef boxes where there may be 20 customers for one animal, it gets to be a little bit more busy. And so that's where I actually am considering using Barn to Door, because as I get busier and as I'm selling more product, it will take care of all of that sort of organizational side for me. I won't have to send confirmation emails and it will be automatically taking payments. So if you're really looking to grow or you have a high volume of something you're selling, that might be something you want to look at right away. Does Barn to Door make sense, or does Gray's Cart make sense to just build my whole platform with them? It's a lot more expensive, but it can be worth it if it's saving you time.
So we've got a question in here, Hannah. Since you use an inspected meat plant, why have you chosen not to sell pieces?
So because I want to move the whole animal and I don't want to end up with individual pieces in my freezer. It's a goal of ours to at some point have a farm store here at the farm. And, then I'll be able to keep a freezer and keep some cuts on hand. And occasionally I do sell individual cuts if someone asks me for a special request and I have it. But otherwise, I only have limited freezer space. I do have 3 large deep freezers, but, I can only put 1 animal in there at a time, or 1 beef anyway, and move it out. And so I want to make it simple for me. I'm the one boxing it all up too. And it takes me a whole day usually to kind of organize that and box it up. And so to put it in a package where I'm also moving the soup bones that some people don't want. I'm putting a little bit of everything in each box, and that makes me get rid of the whole animal instead of just selling all the ground beef and having expensive steaks or something like that. And I have expanded a little bit as I've gone along and changed some of my offerings. I started offering just a ground beef box, But it also kind of depends on the animal, how big it is and how much I'm getting back, and if I'm able to divide it up that way. And I would say I've spent a good deal of time figuring out my process for splitting up an animal. But I am happy to share that with people if they are thinking about doing it or have questions or have like struggled with figuring it out.
Yeah, I think it's a good question to bring up. I think the selling a half hog has some efficiency benefits for you, but for folks who are selling things like vegetables, fruits, maybe smaller proteins like chickens or eggs, the order minimum delivery thing might be a little bit more tricky. So that's where I think it's really important as you're thinking about building out these order forms to think about what's it going to cost me as a farm to deliver this to a home. Some ways to solve the problem are adding a delivery fee if an order is under a certain amount, or building in the cost of delivery to each item. That's all going to depend on your choice and your customer base. But I think I just wanted to point that out too, in that this is maybe a trickier issue when it comes to vegetables, and I think order minimums are a really great way to solve that problem. Do you have anything to add to that, Hannah?
Yeah, I agree. It's easy for me to deliver and to pay that cost because every customer is making such a big purchase from me. Our smallest offering is the $100 ground beef box, and then the next smallest is our $325 beef box. And so if someone's paying that much money, I'm willing to deliver to them. But yeah, I would say setting an order minimum is totally fine, and people should understand that. People are used to paying, shipping costs. Most people have an Amazon account now, and they're paying $14 a month for that. So yeah, I wouldn't be afraid to charge what you need to.
I've also seen some farmers employ kind of a crowdsourcing technique to selling products, where you're organizing your friends in everybody's going to purchase about $20 to $30 worth of stuff, but together that's going to be $200 for the product. That's a good marketing technique because you get the network effect of the friends of your existing customers, and then your customers still get to have your product at an affordable price. And I think that's something to think about as you're not only thinking about the customers that you want to keep in touch with from the farmers market, but how do you reach out to those neighborhoods? How do you make it more worth your while to come to the metro or come to the community where you're just normally, maybe with the one order you might only be dropping off $75 worth of product. Thinking about making it worth your while and how to build that into every single part of your ordering process, and kind of making it a challenge to your customers. I think I've seen a couple of grass-fed beef growers do that. And so actually some vegetable growers recently too. And I think that's just a great way. People are, at this time with everything going on, people are really talking a lot. They're communicating online. They're very present with each other online because they can't be present in person. So now is a really good time to kind of capitalize on the ways that your customers are communicating with their friends, and how their values are kind of turning inward to products grown locally.
Yeah, and I would say, I even do that sometimes because people want to save the money and get a half hog or, a quarter beef, but they don't actually think they can eat it all, or, whatever, can't afford that big of a purchase all at once. And so they will ask me, like, is anyone else looking for someone to split with? And I do that a lot on social media, putting out, trying to match people up.
Cool. I also wanted to point out a really commonly used form that maybe a lot more of you have seen before, or maybe a little bit more comfortable with, and can pop up pretty quickly without having to build a whole website. And this is Whetstone Farm has been selling pre-sold items for weekly or bi-weekly deliveries to the Twin Cities using a basic Google form. I know they're not extremely thrilled with using Google, but this is a great free option for many of you to try out. And they have it set up where they're asking for check, credit card, PayPal, or Venmo. If any of you are familiar with Venmo, PayPal, again, you can choose those. And it's a nice way to get all the information you need and have it be very clear about even sizes, quantities. It's not the perfect solution, but I think this works really well, and it's very simple for your customers because they're they're used to using Google Forms for a lot of things. And they've got the contact information here, phone, email. And again, they have that minimum order to make it worth our time and gas to deliver to your door. And it's pretty easy to spend $50 when you're talking about, you know, lamb racks and that sort of thing. But maybe this is an opportunity, if you don't have a product that's high value, to pair up with another grower and think about how you can market collectively that way. You might be still, you know, individually delivering, or that's a whole nother conversation that's maybe better set for Misa to talk about. If Swan joins, she can talk about that. But thinking about, again, how you can really drive more volume per order.
Yeah, and I would also just add, like, the way that they said to make it worth our time and effort. Like, I think it's important when people, first of all, people are going to buy from you because they want to buy from you personally and know who you are. When you say something honest like that, it makes them also care and be like, not only do I want to support this farmer, but obviously, like, I want to support the fact that they're paying extra money for a delivery. So, you know, it's like being a little bit vulnerable, but it will help with those costs.
And I just saw Chris has a question about in-person transactions. I think here they probably are avoiding that because they don't want cash exchange. But most of these forms, you can set them up to track inventory, especially things like Shopify. And I don't know, Hannah, can yours track inventory at this point?
Through QuickBooks, I can.
QuickBooks, okay. I know Shopify does a good job of that. Shopify is another, like, online platform that sells all kinds of things. It's not made for farmers, but it's useful for farmers, and I know a lot of folks use it. The EBT SNAP question is something I'm not equipped to answer, but I know that you can track inventory without actually having to capture the transaction, and actually there's a lot more technologies out there to capture inventory versus capture transactions. So that's and I don't think Google Form does that, but I would encourage you to look at Shopify for that.
Yes, and also I do know, you know, that Barn to Door and Gray's Cart, they also do a great job of that. So if you have a lot of inventory and need inventory tracking, those are good things to investigate.
So it's 4:00. We have 2 steps left. Greg, what do you think? Should we kind of move through these relatively quickly and then open it up for questions, or are we okay on time?
I think that sounds good.
Okay. So the last 2 steps are really about marketing and communication channels. And I think we've talked a little bit about that. Hannah's brought up how she prioritizes taking photos daily when she's out at the farm, talking about what she prioritizes sharing and about her family and her farm. But I think one place to start for a lot of farms is rethinking what we call the value proposition. So what is it that your farm offers that's different from the conventional option? You're not competing necessarily with other local farms. You're competing with the local, you know, the grocery stores, the big box, the Walmart, the other options of ways that people get food. So I think thinking about what makes your product better than that is what to focus on. I think quality is always going to be the go-to for local food. I think that's going to be the major win that local producers will always have over these stores that have trucked product in from all around the country. Hannah, can you talk about how maybe what your value proposition is and how you've kind of, you know, built your brand around the quality and how your customer service is a part of that too?
Yeah, I mean, we've always been really concerned that we have a quality product because, well, one, my husband is kind of a foodie. And so he was like, we're not going to grow any terrible, like, gamey, dry, grass-fed beef. If we're doing it, we're going to do it great. And so, you know, obviously that takes having your production practices right. But, you know, once people taste your pastured pork, there's no way it tastes like grocery store pork. And so talking about that to people, that I think does make a lot of sales, because they can identify with what that grocery store pork is like. You know, for us, I do think offering the doorstep delivery, we've always offered that, speaks to the convenience issue. And, you know, I can go on a little bit of a rant of like wanting consumers to be more engaged in the community aspects of local food and like learning how to cook whole foods. But I kind of feel like we have to meet them where they're at as well. And convenience is just huge. Now, hopefully everyone's at home and they're like cooking more and they can get into that slow food aspect of what we're trying to do. But bringing it to their door is an easy place to get them in, get them paying attention to your farm. You know, if they see my face a couple of times and I'm bringing them delicious food and then they go eat it and are super excited about it, they're more likely to think more about the cost of their food, and they're more likely to show up to our farm parties or bring their kids out for a tour. And, you know, yeah, it's all about comparing it to what they can get in the grocery store.
Cool. And then I brought up the idea of partnering with communities or partnering with institutions in your communities. I know churches, schools, local businesses, every small town has community in a variety of places. And I think maybe, Hannah, I know your market has been mostly urban, but I think those networks are also good ways to kind of keep word of mouth going. I don't have specific strategies I'm advocating for, but asking your customers to share it, asking them to send you their pictures of what they did with the product. If you ask me, there's nothing more convenient than pulling out, you know, an awesome product of pork from your chest freezer and having it right there. You don't have to go to the grocery store once every 2 weeks for that. You have that for 6 months or however long. So focusing on what you're offering, and that is maybe a lifestyle switch for your customers, but that's your job to communicate and your job to really kind of feed the dream around and get your customers really excited about being part of that. And the quality of the product is absolutely at the center of that. And once they try it, yeah, they can't go back. So marketing strategies, I think we've already kind of touched on this. The one thing that we haven't, or the two things we haven't, I guess, call to actions, email signups, and then Hannah, I also wanted to have you talk a little bit about how you do kind of your last minute sales and how that is a good or a bad thing and how that goes. So maybe we can kind of just have you talk through those three pieces, starting with maybe email signups and how that's helped your business, and then how you keep in touch with folks by email.
Yeah, you know, I would say I wasn't that focused on email signups in the beginning, but I did some reading, some research, some marketing research, and it seemed like everyone was saying like you have to do social media, but social media isn't where you're going to make your sales necessarily. It might get you some customers, but it's like not the actual funnel. And what you really need to do is be collecting emails, because those are the people who are automatically saying, I'm interested in your product. And you don't want to not have something for sale right now, but they're at your website. You need a way to record who they are and get in contact with them when you do. And so, you know, I use MailChimp because it's free. I have used Constant Contact and other platforms in the past, and they're all equally good. I think MailChimp is nice because it's free. And when you do MailChimp, they give you a free way to put a pop-up form on your website, so that when you go to the website, a pop-up comes up to capture that email. Now, I used to think that was really annoying, but I've been super surprised at how many people sign up just from that. And then I also just have on various places on my website, I have the sign up form as well, just because, you know, people aren't going to go to every page on my website. But if they're going to go and read about me as the farmer at the end of my bio, and information about our family, you know, we have like, you know, basically just the enter your email here, and it kind of just says like, enter to be invited to our farm party. And it's kind of just like, don't you want to hang out with us? Like, you just read about who we are. So that's like kind of the call to action. And then on the order form page, also below the order form, I have the newsletter sign up, because some people are going to read all of that information and just not be ready to order, but I don't want to lose them. Like, they came to the order page, they were really interested, but like, please give me your information, so that I don't lose who you are. And I get a ton of signups on my order form page as well. And you can also set it up to work through Facebook. You can collect emails there. So I think it's really important. And like I said, I don't send that many email newsletters a year. I kind of think people appreciate the fact that there's a benefit to communicating with them regularly. So if you have the time to do a monthly or bi-monthly email newsletter, you should. If you don't feel like you're failing. Like I said, I think maybe I send 4 or 5 a year. It's almost like seasonally. And I basically send farm party. But I get, I think they say that like 2% of an open rate is good for an email newsletter. And I'm constantly getting at least 50%. So the people who are signing up for my newsletter are really engaged. They want information from me. So don't feel bad about sending them information. They want it. But you should be aware that all those people that click like on your Facebook page, when you post to your Facebook page, not all those people are going to see it because of the algorithm. Whereas if you send an email, everyone is going to get that email in their inbox. So that's the difference. And that's why, professional marketers are saying you still need to focus on email collection.
Got a question here. Can you talk about how to collect emails on Facebook? And then another one from a couple back here, if you have any ideas of what people are doing to replace restaurant accounts that they may have lost. But more pertinent one about the emails on Facebook right now.
Yeah, so to set up the sign up form on Facebook, I'm not going to remember off the top of my head, but if you have a Facebook page, I think on the left-hand side, there's like all the different links. And I think one of them is an email capture link. And when you go in there to set it up, you can somehow make the choice that it shows up right there at like underneath your cover photo. I could be wrong about that. But if you noodle around inside Facebook, you should be able to find it. And I can also look and get back to you too if you need help.
Yeah, and a lot of these little details, it's a bit of a learning curve for figuring all these things out. And it's by no means does anyone expect you to have all of these things perfectly ironed out and have a great launch. I think it's about incrementally improving it and learning with the technology. And I think asking your network, maybe you've got a niece, nephew, cousin, friend, customer who's really good with some of these things and can help set it up. Once you set it up, it's going to take a lot of pressure off your shoulders. And questions like this can also be Googled, and there's good tutorials for the little details around it. Most of these platforms like MailChimp, Facebook, they want to make sure you know how to use them. So there's usually helpful tips in how you can fix some of those details. And I think the main thing is that you're aware of those things that need to be changed. That's like the most important step. And I'm confident that everyone on this call can find the ways to add those details to their Facebook page and whatnot through the collective knowledge, I guess I'll say. So it's not so scary once you start digging into it.
Mm-hmm.
As far as the restaurant question, I don't know if I could I don't have a good answer for that, unfortunately. I know it's been really tough for a few folks, but an example is Open Hands Farm. What they did, they lost a huge institutional account because they're selling to colleges, schools, big accounts, and they went straight to consumers. So they put a call out to their network and said, hey, we have this many pounds of carrots to move. Who was willing to buy a 20-pound bag? And within a few days, they sold all of them. So I think a lot of people are turning to their own networks and going to consumers. It's a little bit different now where, we can plan ahead. A lot of folks are planting now the products that they are going to sell to restaurants. So I think, if there are farmers like that on the call, I think it's more about exploring some of these online options to fill in for that, and finding effective ways to reach folks. I know rural grocery has to be a pretty big opportunity, but I know that a lot of these big distributors are kind of taking over those accounts. But I think if you're persistent with it, the MDA has this survey that they put out recently for farmers who have lost restaurant accounts, and they were working with the Minnesota Grocers Association and making connections between farmers that are out of market due to the restaurant closures, and the grocery stores that might be interested. And I think that work is just starting, and there's no guarantees there, but I think it's about, getting all these details together, making a concise plan about what you're offering folks, and then knocking on some doors. Because I think the value for locally farmed product is only going to grow as we keep digging into this kind of uncertain time. And I think the persistency around it and connecting with folks like the MDA survey, I think that's really important. Melissa asked about what percentage of restaurants will fail. Oof.
Mm-hmm.
I've heard 40. Okay, yeah, Carla said the same thing. I've only heard of a couple so far. And if we're just talking about metro restaurants, that might be different than rural. But yeah, it's scary. Oh, hi, Swan. Yeah, it's going to depend on a lot of things.
I think now is a good opportunity to reach out to the individual customers, or even if they weren't customers, just your network of people, your friends and neighbors, and start talking to them about, the food insecurity and how weird it has felt to go to the grocery store and see empty shelves, and say, tell them there are other options. And like, I'm asking you to support me. And like, we lost restaurant sales and we don't know what's going to happen this season, but I want to grow food for my community. Will you support me? I think.
Yeah, sorry to interrupt.
No,
People do not want to go to the grocery store right now. It's scary. It feels risky. I don't know. It's not a great experience, and getting a safely grown, healthy, nutritious product sitting on your doorstep, or even taking a drive out to the farm. I think now's an opportunity for farms to really focus in on farm pickup, because people are feeling cooped up, and they might want to take a drive out to the country and feel a little bit of sense of normalcy, where they're seeing spring happening, they're seeing the seasons change, and they're getting connected with the farm. And I think Open Hands, just to use them as an example, they had a really great no contact pickup setup where they only had, I think, 4 or 5 bags in the place where you were picking up at a time. And they would, as people came in, they would sanitize the door, they'd replace the bag that the person had already just picked up, and they would do that on a rotation. And I think there's some lessons to learn there. And thinking about how to make your customers feel safe right now is really big, and how to make them trust or keep the trust that they have in you, and realize that we can trust neighbors more than we trust these massive supply chains that have a lot of product exchanging different hands, and a lot of people going in and out of these places. I think people are thinking about simplifying and matching that messaging to what you're already doing. So many farms are already doing all of this anyways. It's not a huge change for us, but I think really hitting home on that and being creative about how you're reaching out to your neighbors and you're understanding what they are looking for and what they need right now is really critical. Okay, Swan. Okay, yeah, Melissa says it's way more work to sell to individuals. Correct. I think that we're gonna find out. I think the grocery is a big opportunity, and maybe aggregating at some point, but that's all. It's all very fresh right now. So yeah, maybe Swan should talk about the online ordering platforms resource, and then we can kind of go to more questions and maybe have more of a dialogue about this.
Sorry, I think I have to unmute you, Swan, if you're trying to talk. Hold on. Where are you? Swan, unmuted. Give it a try.
Hi there. Can everyone hear me? Shake your head yes, Katie, if you can. Great. So I just wanted to touch on a few resources here and put some links in this PowerPoint. Obviously, there's a lot more resources that are out there for online sales and information around COVID-19. But these are just a few resources that may be of value. So the first is the food. I need to. Sorry, I lost my view. I can only see Greg. I can't see the slide though. Here we go. The Food Animal Concerns Trust Strategies for Online Farm Sales. That's a PDF, which was of a webinar that they gave yesterday, actually, which you may find valuable to look at. And if we can get back to the slide too, I'm not going to go into detail about what's on here because I feel like the chat questions have been really poignant. And if you just go back one slide though.
Oh, sorry. Oh man. There we go.
I've had a lot of great resources been coming from Oregon Tilth lately. Their online sales platforms for farmers document is really a great curated selection. And I know Katie and I have discussed that there are a lot of additional platforms out there, but this is for sure a nice list of kind of the best or the cream of the crop, so to speak. And I would say that would be a good resource to go to first. They also have been doing a webinar series. I just attended one right before getting on this call, actually, on how to use lean principles on your farm to keep your workers safe, how to look at your practices so that you can eliminate touch points, like literal touch points of your farm workers in the processing and distribution of the products to get it out to customers. So you're not touching doors and handles and things like that. So it was really cool resource. And I've included a link to COVID-19 for them too. Katie, you can go ahead and of course, MISA's publications catalog is a wealth of resources that will definitely help guide anyone to how to do things legally. I particularly like the local food fact sheet series. I find that there are nice one-page documents that kind of show how to sell vegetables and, other farm products. And the fact webinars, once again, the fact is offering pretty good content on their webinar series. Kathy Z with the Minnesota Farmers Market Association is doing weekly calls now. And I believe there is a COVID link that's been added to their website that content will be being added to that in the near future. But for now, I linked to the homepage because that gives you the information on those calls. And that's just good to see how farmers markets are responding. But it's also good on the farm level just to look at the types of things that farmers markets are considering are also the types of things that a farm would want to consider to keep their workers safe when they have consumers on the farm buying from a farm store or exchange of their boxes or any type of interaction they may have with the public and how to go about doing that safely. And then of course, renewing the countryside Jan and Brett have been really engaged in this space with farmers markets, and have a lot of resources on their website and published documents that may be a resource for farms that are looking to sell local food online. I know that they recently did the Blazing Trails work, which was really great, training on cottage food laws and what you need in terms. When I hear the word aggregator, I think red flag. I mean, no, it's good that we are looking at ways of collaborating with other farmers, but we just want to make sure that we're doing that legally or keeping laws in mind when doing so. So, and that's all I have on these resources.
I just wanted to say that I actually took the FACT webinar yesterday. And so for people who have questions specifically about building out like the specific platforms that you can do, like Barn to Door or Graze Cart or Square, it did a really good job of talking about those different options and people who have tried different ones. I did see a question someone had about Square specifically. I haven't done it. I've never had Square, but they walked through it yesterday and it looked pretty easy. The way that it's different is it's not quite as integrated into your website. It's more like a link on your website that then kind of takes you into the Square platform. But you theoretically could just have the Square platform as your website and not have more information if you're just looking to make online sales. They do charge the Square fee for accepting credit cards, but that's kind of a given. And I don't think it does as much inventory tracking as, say, Graze Cart or Barn to Door. But if you're just looking to, like, for an easy way to make online sales, I do think it's a really quick one to put together.
Great. So, does anybody have any more? Is there more, Katie, that you have? It's question time.
On ordering platforms. So Katie Brunson asked a question about, is there any online ordering platforms that are affordable or free? Could you, I guess, I don't really know what you're looking to do, but there's a lot that are, Google Forms is an example of one that you could order for free. I don't know, Hannah, maybe you have better answers to this question.
Well, so you could create a free website with one of the free platforms and just use Google Forms to take your orders online. There are plenty of forms that do that. I think that's like the easiest way to do it free. It's not necessarily going to be the easiest for like all that tracking side of things I talked about. But if you're just getting started and you don't have the money to invest, I would say that's like the quick and easy way to just get a free website and use Google Forms.
And Google Forms can be sent out via email, on your Facebook, word of mouth. I guess people could share the link. There's easy ways to do that without having to have like a fully fledged website that explains all these things. For example, I don't need to go to the example I brought up of Whetstones. I don't need to go to their farm to make the order. I can just go to that link. So that might be a good way to circumvent it. Launch. Okay. Common to expect to spend at launching a new website for ordering with monthly fees. It could be, I mean, my range would probably be anywhere between, 10 to 15 bucks a month and up to a couple $100 a month. Is that a fair range? Depends on what your level of.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. It's been a while since I started mine, and maybe it's even changed, but I would say I think I spend maybe like $150 a year for my Squarespace website, something around there. I also pay a little bit extra. I think I paid extra for my domain name.
Mm-hmm.
and to also be able to have my email address be my same domain name. So there are some options like that you don't have to pay the extra money for. I think with like a WordPress website where you're just paying for the web hosting, like GoDaddy, I could be wrong, but I think it's more like $30 to $50 a year. It's been a while since I've done anything with GoDaddy. Maybe someone else knows.
Yeah, that seems a little
okay,
high.
$250 with GoDaddy.
That might be a little bit higher than, I guess there's also, you could pay for more security on your website, and you can have protection.
Yeah, there's always a lot of
Yeah.
options. I think a lot of it has to do with the domain, buying the domain too.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, see, there you go. $135 a year.
I was way off. Well, so when you think about it that way, that's pretty comparable to to Squarespace.
And so sometimes with these, so some people think that, oh, I got to go buy my domain name for, katiesvegetablefarm.com first, and then I have to go make my website. Often some of these apps like Squarespace and Wix, they'll do that work for you. So it's a little bit easier, and they'll help you connect your email to. GoDaddy is an example of a host, but there's a lot of other ones out there that you could buy the domain from, and get your hosting taken care of. And a lot of these apps are really great because they prevent you from having to worry about those steps. They do it for you. But those sometimes can be a little bit more expensive. And I'm gonna put my email in here, and folks can reach out to me if we don't cover anything either. Okay, Weebly is a good one too.
Oh yeah, Weebly.
Yeah, and Wix has a free option too, where they say .wix.com, same thing. There's it's hard to have this conversation and say here's an exhaustive list of your options, because there's just so many. But I know that everyone's trying to find a place to start. So it's just a tough thing.
I'll put my email in there too if I can get it to go. Okay. Yeah, and I could also mention, like, if you have no web presence and you're too overwhelmed, but you just want like your information to be on the internet somewhere, Google also has an option through their Google My Business platform to make like a simple one page. It's like basically just your contact information, and then you will show up in Google results.
Do you have any other questions?
Anybody have more questions? You either type them into go ahead and type them into the Zoom chat down here if you have any more questions. We'll get answered for you. There's a farmer's market question. I'm going to see if I can maybe find Kathy Zeman and unmute you if you would like to field that one. Where are you? No, you're in here. Here you go. Kathy, you are unmuted if you want to talk about farmers markets for a second here.
Yes.
Question. There you are.
Thanks, Kathy Zeman, Minnesota Farmers Market Association. So as long as we are considered in the same category as grocery stores, we are an essential service. So farmers markets sell food just like a grocery store does. So we're all in that same bucket. It doesn't mean that it is farmers markets as usual. It is farmers markets in 2020, which means that we can remain open as long as there is no on-site consumption of food, which means no food sampling. And it means that we need to figure out a way to keep everybody 6 feet apart, and multiple hand washing stations, and to figure out, if we can, doing pre-ordering and then drive-throughs. So the key to that is to limit the amount of people in the amount of space so that you can keep people 6 feet apart. So unless we screw up, of course, if we screw up, then, the governor could come back in and take that away from us. The difference, I think, between a farmer's market and the grocery stores is that most farmers markets are out in the open. So the fresh air helps us, right? Fresh air in this virus situation is a benefit to farmers markets, but we're also out in the open where everybody can see us. Therefore, farmers markets are going to have to work pretty hard to make sure that we're trying to maintain that 6 feet, hand washing stations, etc. But yeah, farmers markets are open for business.
And there's a note down here from Connie, just to let everybody know, we'll be doing this local food college session twice a week, Tuesdays and Thursdays, and Kathy will be doing a session on April 9th, which is next Thursday, all about farmers markets. People want to have more questions around that, please join us there. All right. Any other questions? I see there's probably a few that maybe didn't get answered yet. What about WordPress? $125 and yeah, go take it, Katie.
WordPress is another good one. It tends to be a little bit more finicky, so there's a lot of little details, and I'm sure, Vaughn, you'd have some experience with that. Once you learn it, it's good, but it can be hard for somebody who this might be their first website to figure that out. A lot of these new platforms you're able to actually drag and drop and see how things look immediately. You don't have to do anything on back-end forms, which WordPress is a little bit more back-end, but with WordPress, it's a really powerful platform. You can add a lot of really great applications, and you can have some powerful e-commerce sites. It's not clear if that's what you do if you do any e-commerce there, but yeah, I think WordPress is good. I just have found that it's trickier for businesses to operate on the fly.
Yeah, I think if you're going to hire someone to build you a website, like WordPress can be good because they can like integrate a lot of really specific things you might ask for. And then as long as they teach you how to make the updates to like the content parts of your pages, then it's fine. But it can be harder than like Squarespace, where there's really easy templates to work with.
Mm-hmm.
And I used to think that Squarespace was more expensive than all of these other ones, but now that I'm seeing the prices, they must have all raised their prices when Squarespace came on the market. So I think it's actually probably pretty competitive now.
Yeah, and they're now, the thing that I don't love about it is that they push you into doing a year agreement to get a good deal, but that's also a good thing because you can get a better deal on it. You can get 40% off, and they do specials, and you can make an account but don't buy anything, and then a few weeks later they'll send you a coupon for something, so you can try it that way and just poke around and see what you think about it. Don't commit to anything until you're comfortable with it. It's just my generalized advice. And yeah, there's a lot of good little tricks out there on these apps that can help you keep it simple and help you accomplish some sales.
Yeah, I have done that with Wix, just like testing it out to see how it all works. So most of them do have the free trials where you can play around for a little bit till you get comfortable.
Mm-hmm. And Shopify, I think now you can hire a Shopify expert to build out your platform for you. So maybe that would be a better, kind of a better choice than just hiring somebody to build a website. I think somebody was asking a question about that earlier. So a lot of people I've just heard so many stories of folks who say, yeah, I paid $2,000 for a website. You should never pay $2,000 for this kind of website. Never. Hourly labor, I think, yes, you can kind of look at that and see what their time is worth, but a few $100, if you need some help, would go a long way if you get the right person. And I think like at this point, high quality photos are, a huge priority for if you need to spend that money, focus there. That's just my 2 cents.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thanks. I don't know, are there any other questions coming in? We want to make sure everybody has the chance to ask any questions they have. I see a lot of people have filtered out, which is fine, but we just want to make sure that we've got the ability to get everything figured out here. So anybody who has any questions, or maybe there's one previously up in the stream here that didn't get responded to, feel free to throw a question in the chat. We'll wait around a second here.
Yeah, and if anyone wants to reach out by email, again, I'm more than happy to chat more specific. Got a little bit of time these days. So.
And if there are no more questions, I have a couple more slides. I'm obligated to share my screen and show you. Let's just get this wrapped up here. Let me see, give me a second, share my screen. Share. Okay, here we go. Things you can do. Local Food College, as we wrap up this session, check us out on Facebook, www.facebook.com/groups/Local Foods College. If that doesn't work, it's Local Food College. I can't remember if there's an S or no S. Looks like S. Tweet at Local Foods College at RSDP, or hashtag Local Foods College at RSDP at UMN Small Farms. And join us next week where we will talk about more important stuff. This would be next Tuesday and Thursday, and the following Tuesday and Thursday as well. Check out, oh, sorry, here we go. Check out our website, our Local Food College website, z.umn.edu/Local Foods College. Yeah, that's where you'll get all the information about the upcoming sessions. And that is what we have. I think that we have your email addresses, and we'll be sending you a survey. So please take a couple of minutes and fill out the survey. If you are going to be joining us again in a couple of days here for the next session, we'll see you then. Otherwise, have a great week. Stay healthy, wash your hands, do all that stuff you got to do. Stay away from people. All right. Great. That is that. Thanks, everybody.
Bye. Thank you.